Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee. I'm Peter Bolton, chairing the meeting, and to my left is Tony Jarvis, who is an independent member of the committee who is acting as Vice Chairman. I would like to remind everybody present that this meeting will be recorded to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the lower seating area, then it is likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. Could I also remind members to activate their microphones before speaking and turn them off after they finish speaking so that other people can speak. Thank you. Item 2, apologies for absence.
Apologies have been received from Councillor Matthews, and Councillor Owen may be able to attend late.
And he is attending in person?
He would be attending virtually if he's able to.
Virtually, okay, thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. No, thank you. Agenda item 4, minutes, pages 4 to 10 for your noting. Are there any comments to be made or are they accepted? Thank you. Matters arising. Are there any matters arising?
No matters arising,
thank
Chair.
you. Item 6, the work programme on page 11. Thank you. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Just to let you know, there's just a couple of changes, is that the anti-fraud and corruption strategy, the Code of Corporate Governance and the review of the whistleblowing policy will be coming to the February meeting, not this meeting.
Thank you. Item 7. Sorry, it's so cold. Risk management. If we could have a presentation on the risk management, please. Yes. Thank you, Andrew.
So, thank you, Chair. So this is the standing item that comes forward to, I think, to all Audit and Governance Committee meetings and sets out the Council's corporate risk register, analysing and identifying what the corporate key risks are to the organisation and what the underlying risk is and what actions we're taking to try and mitigate those risks and give you a balanced score position really at the end of that. So I suppose the important table is the one under line 4, which is on page 13, which sets out a summary of the key risks that the Council is facing at this moment in time. For those of the committee members who will probably be familiar with these risks, I think they haven't changed at least at a headline level, but the actual risk score does change from meeting to meeting. To highlight probably the ones that just need drawing out, so some minor decreases I think in the overall risk score from homelessness as a risk, our ability to build enough new affordable housing to meet demand is also slightly decreased. Our position in relation to climate change, I mean that's in position to our ability to influence, of course is marginally decreased, but probably the one that's increased notably is our ability to deliver a balanced budget. And I guess that shouldn't be a huge surprise at this moment in the overall financial cycle, in as much as yet we know there's a big gap, and that's been identified in reports to Cabinet and Scrutiny Committee, but we haven't come forward yet with a package of solutions to mitigate and balance or reduce that, or to balance the budget rather. So that's currently a higher risk at this moment in time, and probably will remain so until we've agreed a balanced budget as a council. The detail is in the attached Appendix 1. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. Thanks, Chair, but happy to take any questions on it.
Any questions from members of the committee? No? Tony.
Thank you, Chairman. It appears in here and in another report, but there was due, because it was a high risk, one of the highest actually, to get rid of some old servers, which in the current, when you read the papers these days about what's going on in cyber attacks, etc., old servers don't serve their purpose at all. I wondered whether they had actually gone now. I suspect they haven't, but they were due to have gone, according to the minutes, by about September. So I'm not sure whether they're still with us or not.
Sue, are you able to?
Yeah, so the servers are slowly being replaced as they can. The reason for the delay is because there are some applications which are sitting on the servers, so they can't be decommissioned yet until these have been moved either to the cloud or to somewhere else. So it's been done as quickly as possible.
That's fine.
Thank you.
And can I ask one more question?
Yes, you can.
I said something along these lines yesterday, but in the last time we met, there's something in the risk register about savings the council's going to make, and one of the items is shared services. I'm not sure that I'm happy with shared financial services being considered a cost reduction item when the highest risks being considered in the council are about financial problems at the moment.
Thank you. Andrew.
I think I would say that probably the single driver for shared services, particularly in the finance space, isn't actually around savings, although I do believe that will be a product of, because I think if you're sharing financial systems, for example, or specialist advice, then there are savings to be had. But actually probably the main reason is because all departments, all areas of the council are being squeezed as budgets necessitate, I suppose, really. But so one of the solutions to the impacts of that and to how to build resilience and robust financial services is to share our resources with other organisations, other local authorities. So if we have, for example, if there are two people who understand our financial system, one in each council, that then in the event that one of those councils loses their systems accountant, for example, then if we're working closely together, then we can share the expertise from the other council. So that gives us resilience and the ability to adapt to shocks, something that we can't afford just to build into the budget as slack. So I think one of the key reasons for doing shared services is to build roles that have a wider scope, more attractive to the market perhaps because they have bigger remits, perhaps better paid. But we're built in contingency, I suppose, across two organisations to allow us to adapt to the inevitable shrinking budgets that we're going to have to deal with as councils, really, and have been dealing with for a number of years. You can't continue to salami slice finance teams really one way or the other, and whilst you may choose to preserve a finance team, for example, that just means cutting frontline services instead. So everybody has to play a part in that, and we need to look to innovative and creative ways to, one, protect the council's interests, but two, to deal with the financial challenge that there's also inevitably has to be dealt with by each council.
Thank you. Yes. Councillor White, sorry.
Thanks. Yes, I can follow that up. I mean, I think Mr. Small's quite clearly put forward potential advantages with shared services, and they undoubtedly exist. They also do pose challenges in terms of management arrangements. How do you know that the people you're employing to do things are doing the stuff that you need for your council and aren't elsewhere doing something for someone else's council? issues around, if you're entering commitments with other councils for a sort of fixed period of time, it potentially reduces your flexibility. I think it'd be helpful if we understand a bit more at some stage about, what are the commitments we've entered into with respect to, to other councils and other authorities, how the management arrangements work, with the shared services that we've got, to ensure that, all the partners, get, the appropriate return for the money they've put in and so forth. I'm not sort of clear, where those sort of business cases and assurances sit at the moment, but I think it'd be useful for this committee to look at that.
Thank you. Yes, because we have access to seek assurances from our own council. I wonder if, Andrew, you could comment at all about how we can get assurances across other councils.
I think it's kind of an interesting question, and one I think I'm happy to explore more in more detail, because I think shared services is likely to increase up the agenda anyway. And I think it's a natural and probably appropriate response to the financial challenge agenda that we're doing. As I said, a few minutes ago, of course the alternative, if we want to protect back office services, the alternative is to cut frontline, and we don't want to be in that space either. So there has to be a balanced reduction in frontline and back office support as well. But we need to make sure equally that our back office is robust and able to provide the functions that the council and organisation requires of it. Myself and Mr Hartgrove have been working shared across Epping and Colchester now for 6 months, just slightly over in fact. I think one of the, it's difficult to set up any definitive measures or benchmarks as measures of success. I think the acid test is whether the members of each council feel that they're being well advised, really, in terms of the financial advice they're receiving, whether the financial health of the organisations is maintained, and and then the advice given is being listened to. Thus far, we're in a very challenging financial environment at the moment in both councils, I would say. Epping not least of all. Thus far, I think we're managing to deal with the challenge of maintaining a financial service to two councils. And I would add that there's probably there are benefits as well, because it's not just a give a one-way relationship. Actually, we're learning from some of the financial processes, for example, in Colchester, and taking some of those back and building them into our own financial processes, so that it's mutually beneficial. And we are seeing opportunities to share capacity, share resources, to deal with weaknesses in our own structure in terms of knowledge and experience, for example. So it's a two-way flow, and I think actually beneficial. So I believe, and it's not really appropriate for me necessarily to speak to Colchester, but I understand that they're happy with the relationship so far. If our members are happy in Epping as well, and equally I'm not being told otherwise, then I think it needs to be developed still further. So we can explore how far we can go with it. Finance is probably one of the early adopters, so I think we should watch it quite closely to see whether it is successful and mutually beneficial as well. But as I say, I think it's something that should stay on the agenda, because it's likely to roll out further, and we can see what the benefits of that are in due course. I would of course highlight that our internal auditor works across 4 councils, and I would say does so very successfully as well. So it's not necessarily a brand new model, far from it actually. Payroll is shared with a number of councils in Epping, and has been for many years. But I think the imperative is on us to look to, as I said earlier, creative solutions to the financial challenge. That shouldn't preclude operating outside of traditional boundaries.
Did you want to come back there?
Yes, that's undoubtedly true. And I think it's because, as we've heard, these relationships are likely to develop further and become more widespread, that we need to understand, at this stage, what the governance, issues are, and what the issues there are, rather than turn around at a later stage and say, well, we can't do anything about it now. It is how it is. So, you know, that's why I raised the topic. There's one other question I had, if that was all right. I mean, I'm very happy that the risks listed on the risk management thing there are all significant and need to be there. I was going to ask about legal risk, because one of the sort of consequences sometimes of, you know, financial constraints are people become sort of increasingly adversarial in contractual relationships, or you know, people who think they're not getting the services are entitled to, you know, resort to law because it's the only medium they think they've got for getting things, or you know, as you, well, like shared services, as you increase into ever-growing web of relationships and look to shift the burden from, you know, a local authority company to a council or vice versa. I just wondered if we've looked at if the legal risk landscape's changing and where we think that sits.
I mean, it's an interesting question. I would probably contend, though, that the legal risk is probably wrapped around the service that's in dispute. You know, for example, waste is on our corporate risk register, and you know, if there was a legal dispute, waste is the issue as opposed to legal in itself, really. That said, I don't think there's been a huge step up in terms of, you know, legal proceedings or legal action or contractor disputes at this moment in time, which is probably one of the reasons it's not kind of manifesting in terms of they're on the risk register. But there are risks that could end in legal dispute, but I think they're highlighted on the risk register, such as waste, as highlighted.
Thank you. Sorry, I have to flip. Are we on item 9 now? Yes. On item 9, the Treasury Management. No, sorry, 8. Sorry, I must apologise, because as I don't have a paper copy, I have to flip back to the agenda and then in that direction. So I apologise for that, but I have help. So, item 8. Sue, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd like to take you through the first part of this report to give an update on the work of internal audit since the last meeting, and this part is for noting only. 3 final reports have been issued since the last update in July 23. The first one is IT disaster recovery, which was given substantial assurance. So this is particularly noteworthy as the last audit of this area in 2021 was given limited assurance, and I think this demonstrates the extensive work that IT have undertaken to improve the disaster recovery arrangements. The second one is cash and banking, which was also given substantial assurance. We found the council has robust controls for handling cash income, although it should be noted the council has significantly reduced the amount of cash it receives, and in fact since the audit was undertaken their fleet operations has also gone cashless. And the third report is SAFES, which was given reasonable assurance. Practices across the council vary, so we would benefit from a formal council-wide process with written procedures which are currently being developed. Moving on to the recommendation tracker, the detail is given in Appendix 2, and the summary is in Table 1. A total of 14 items outstanding. The 2 high priority ones are not yet due, and work is progressing on these. And the others, work is ongoing with completing those. So I'll hand over to Sarah. You want me to do that? Okay. Other internal audit activities that we undertake in several areas. So we're still heavily involved with risk management. assisting with the rollout of the new corporate risk management framework. So we attend senior leadership team quarterly to review the corporate risk register, and we also have an operational risk management group which is chaired by the Head of Internal Audit, to embed risk management throughout the organisation. Internal Audit did a review into an attempted bank mandate fraud. This was a phishing email, and undertook a review of the processes to see if there were any improvements that could be made. And a workshop around the out-of-hours service was facilitated to get a joined-up approach across the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. So I'm moving on to the second part of the audit report. Item 6 is the external quality assessment. So people often say to me, Sarah, who audits internal audit? Well, yes, we do get audited, and we have to have that done every 5 years by an external person. We did have it done back in 21, and we were fully compliant. And then in November last year, St Albans joined the shared service, and they didn't have an up-to-date EQA, external quality assessment. So we brought our assessor back in. He reviewed all our processes across all 4 councils, but with a particular focus on St Albans, who have adopted all the same working practices as we have in the other 3 councils. And I'm really pleased to say that we are fully compliant with the public sector internal audit standards. Moving on to item 9, so that's the internal audit charter. So this is a really important document, and I need your formal approval to this as part of your role as the audit committee. So this sets out the roles and responsibilities of internal audit, and it gives me the remit to audit anything that I want to, and I have unrestricted access to everything, including the chief exec, section 151 officer, all officers, and also to the audit committee and the audit chair. We did have a separate internal audit charter for each of the 4 councils in the shared service. To make efficiencies, we've combined that into a single document. So this is the same document going to the other 3 councils. And the only major change is that, just to ensure consistency, I'm changing my title to Head of Internal Audit. It doesn't change anything else that I do. The last part of the report, starting on item 12, is the regular update against the annual governance statement action plan. And you can see that we're making really good progress on all the areas that are identified in that. So we're keeping an eye on the economic issues. Statement of accounts, we're trying to work with our external auditors to get that completed, but we're waiting for some central government guidance on that. Financial management code, I've met up with Chris and we've got a way forward with that. There's lots of work going on around income recovery, and we've got that on the audit plan for this year as well. And financial regulations are in the process of being updated. And then the 2 common themes there, risk management, you've already had an update on that. We're doing a lot of work on that. And business continuity, we're monitoring progress with that through the Officer Corporate Governance Group. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Tony.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, it's good news about the external quality assessment, so I congratulate on that, to get through that so well. That's good. Unfortunately, the rest of the council doesn't seem to be doing quite as well. If there are 11 items, it appears, where audit have made recommendations, and nothing has happened after the priority date was passed. So that's not quite keeping up to your standards, I'm afraid. Is any of those really serious?
So there's no high priority recommendations which have gone past their due date. So these are the medium and low ones. And although they've not been completed, there has been action on most of them. We get updates from the responsible manager to see how it's going, and to try and establish what the barriers are to complete it. So there's nothing that we're particularly concerned about there.
Tony, are there things that you are concerned about?
I'll be looking forward to the next report, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
I'm sorry if I missed it, but why did the Council House conveyancing, right by conveyancing, not have a standard of assurance against it? Is it just awaiting that to happen?
No, so this was not an audit. This was a sort of another piece of work which was around sort of compliance with the with our legal processes and our own internal procedures. So we didn't give an assurance rating on it, but there were no recommendations arising from the review.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Item 9, yes, thank you.
Chairman, could you seek approval for the committee for the internal audit?
Yes. Councillor Vaz, Councillor Bolton, Tony, we accept.
Yes.
We approve of
Yes.
this report. Is that correct, Doctor? Councillor Vaz, you approve? Yeah, thank you. And we are the quorum. Are we still quorum? Does it matter? Shut up, mate. Move on to item 9. Yes. Chris, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. Item 9 then, the Treasury Management Quarter 2 Update Report for 23-24. Members may recall considering the Treasury Management Strategy for 23-24 back in February of this year, which was subsequently adopted by full Council. This report, presented on pages 78 to 92 of your agenda this evening, provides a Quarter 2 update on that strategy. It considers both borrowing and investment activity during the year to date, and the report also considers how the Council performed against the relevant Treasury management indicators set for 23-24. As mentioned in Quarter 1, this report is now prepared in accordance with SIPFA's updated Treasury Management Code, which was published in 2021. This has been a mandatory requirement since April 2023. The 2021 Code introduced some changes to its 2017 predecessor, including a requirement to provide a quarterly update as opposed to the previous 6 monthly requirement. Hence another report, the second of 4 this financial year, is before you this evening. The new code also introduced some structural changes to reportable content, including additional disclosure of non-treasury investments and some changes to mandatory prudential indicators. Turning to the highlights then, first of all, borrowing on table 3, page 84. The Quarter 2 borrowing position as at the 30th of September has increased slightly from 281.6 million to 290.3 million compared to the position at the start of the year, mostly due to an increase of 5.2 million on long-term borrowing from the PWLB in order to finance on-lending in the form of development loans to Qualis, from which the Council, of course, receives a margin. Finance offices, I must stress, continue to work closely with Arling Close and follow their advice, which often requires tactical borrowing decisions based on rapidly changing interest rates and a wide range of maturities. Turning to investments then on table 4, page 85, The Q2 investment balance as at the 30th of September is reduced from 14.1 million to 8.2 million compared to the position as at the 31st of March 2023, with £4 million held in money market funds, representing the largest category of investments. £2 million was held in the government's debt management account deposit facility, with the balance, 2.2 million, retained in the council's NatWest bank account. With regard to service investments, which are presented in Table 5 on page 86, the loans that we grant to Qualis, from which the council receives a margin, are captured within the classification of service investments as well as home assistance loans. The overall value of outstanding service investments has increased by 12 million at the Q2 stage compared to the start of the year, up from 38.9 million to 50.9 million, which primarily reflects the further drawdown of development loans taken out by Qualis, as mentioned earlier. Turning to Table 6 then, on page 87, that sets out the council's commercial property investments, and an analysis of these investments is presented, showing a balance sheet value of 148.5 million at the start of the year, with net income of 4.121 million after 6 months, which is very similar to the same stage last year, down slightly, but that's due to a number of rent-free inducements, if you like, rent-free periods for new lets, and the volume of income is expected to increase in the second half of the year as a number of the newly negotiated leases and tenants begin paying full rent. Commercial loans then, set out in Table 7. There's only one of these, and it's a Qualis investment loan, and that's a single commercial investment loan outstanding as a 10-year maturity loan. It's a 10-year maturity loan granted in September 2020 for 30 million, and due to the nature of maturity loans, the balance outstanding remains static at 30 million. And finally, to finish off with compliance then, on pages 88 to 92, I'm able to provide Section 151 assurance that Treasury management activity undertaken during Q2 fully complied with the 2021 Treasury Management Code, and that the committee can be assured that the transition from the 2017 to the 2021 Code has successfully been made. I'm also pleased to confirm that, subject to a temporary reduction in available cash in late September, affecting the liquidity indicator on page 91, full compliance was achieved with the prudential and Treasury management indicators included within the strategy. That includes the mandatory liability benchmark presented on the graph at the top of page 90, which demonstrates that although the council is a net borrower, external borrowing is minimised wherever possible through the use of its own resources, also known as internal borrowing, in order to minimise risk and reduce cost. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Tony.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
There's an asterisk on page 86 under the table 5, which says that loss allowances excluded, and I'm assuming that means loss in value, and that would arise to be checked every time there's a balance sheet, or every year at least, I would imagine. So what was the loss allowance, if there was one, on the development loan to Qualis, and then the investment loan to Qualis, which is on page 87. And that determines how the value, how much value the council has got in the, indirectly through these, for these loans. Thank you, Chairman.
Chris.
I'll let Mr Small come in. He's rather more fleet-footed on the computer than I am. He's got the numbers there, I think, for the estimated credit losses. But yes, just to sort of confirm, you're quite right. We're required to make is a technical adjustment in the balance sheet each year for expected credit losses. It's a highly specialised calculation that Arling Close do for us each year. Rest assured, so far at least, they're not genuine losses. They are calculated losses based on risk, and there is provision made within the council's general fund reserve, and each year that moves up and down depending on circumstances, and the council sets aside or draws down depending on circumstances, so it doesn't take full hit in any one year. So and it's, as I say, it can go both ways. So some years we've been getting credits from the general fund reserve. So sorry.
Thank you, Chair. So I can confirm the credit loss as at the 31st of March 2023 on the development loans was £465,000, and the credit expected credit loss on investment loans was £714,000. As Chris says, they are kind of akin to a bad debt provision really on loans and an accounting requirement. It doesn't necessarily mean that we believe that these are genuine risks at that level, but this is, there's a calculation we follow, and these are the amounts that come out of that calculation.
Just to clarify, Chairman, in respect to the investment loan, did you say that was 2 or 3 years ago when it was advanced? 2020. Now, so this investment is now almost 3 years, and during that time there's still a loss allowance against that investment.
My understanding is that there will be until it's fully repaid. So it's kind of an ongoing, I'm sure unless Chris corrects me otherwise. I assume that there will be a credit loss provision until the loan is finally repaid.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Sorry. I should have. Normally I would have received a paper one, but for some reason it's got lost in the post. Yeah. Well, perhaps, yeah. It'll be quicker. We're almost there anyway, so thank you. So, item 10, any other business? A, this room's very cold. B, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out in this weather. And I'd also like to thank Tony. This is his last meeting on this committee. He served this committee well, and we very much value his input. And we're sorry to see him leaving the committee. We are in the process of trying to recruit further independent input. We had put out to advert in the past, but were unsuccessful. But we are continuing to seek recruitment, and if any members of this committee know of anybody who would like to apply, if they could be encouraged, if they have the requisite skills and commitment. Thank you. Good. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just add my thanks to Tony for his contribution to the committee over the last, well, at least certainly since I've been here, really. I think from a finance perspective and from internal audit, I think we valued his challenge and professionalism in terms of his contribution into this committee. I think it's been well received, and thank you very much for your input.
Thank you.
Chairman, can I just say that
Yes, of course you can.
it has been a privilege really to work here, and at times I've almost enjoyed it as well. Thank you, Chairman.
We've enjoyed you being here, so it's almost mutual. No, it is, we, of course, and you've been very courteous, and I hope we have proved courteous in return, which is not always common in politics, but we're gentlemen and ladies. Sorry. So I'd like to draw this meeting to an end at 7:40. Is that right? Yes.